Okay, so we have skin, right? It's your first line of defense, making sure that things cannot penetrate and enter your bloodstream, which is right here. So you've got all these protective properties, not only to stop infectious agents, but also to kill them right on the surface because you have your sebaceous glands. You also have thermoregulation, vitamin D synthesis, and protecting your DNA from the sun. So there's a lot of different things going on in your integument system that's going to help aid in the whole function of your body. All right, so knowing your layers, right? So you have your epidermis. You can tell this is your epidermis because you actually can see your stratified squamous. Your dermal layer will start here. This little squiggly line is your papillary layer. And then you see all your accessory organs, which are here. The hypodermis is not technically a part of the integument system, but it does aid in its function. So you do learn about it because, as you can see, a lot of the blood goes through there. Also, there's a couple of your accessory organs that go deep enough that are into your hypodermis. It's also there for protection because right below you have your muscle. Tissues. So this is a slide that talks about all the tissues. So knowing that your epidermis is stratified squamous, right? You can see it. Okay. Knowing that now we're in the dermal layer. Your dermal layer, this purple, is your papillary. Just imagine all these phagocytes in there ready to attack. You've got the reticular, which would be all this whole entire layer, would be like this right here. You got nervous tissue, part of your sensory receptors. You've got erector pili, which is smooth muscle. So you have muscle into your skin for thermoregulation. And you have adipose in your hypodermis. So those are all different types of tissue. So knowing the difference between papillary and reticular, I think is very important for the test. I think knowing that papillary, more not just what it is, because it's not going to be like, what is this? Papillary. It's more of knowing what its function is for. Knowing that it allows the second line of defense to be there in case something penetrates your first line of defense. So it allows your phagocytes and other cells to wander. Reticular, its function is more to hold on to your, to all of your different accessory organs. So now we're going to get more into your accessory organs. So specifically in your accessory organs, in the epidermis, you have two cells, keratinocytes and melanocytes. And what they're doing is that they're producing these cells that are going to protect you. Okay, so the first one is keratin. It's part of your first line of defense. It makes your skin very tough. Fibrous protein, it's actually what your nails are made out of. It just makes sure things are very, very tough. Melanin is a different accessory organ, but has a different function in the fact that it's going to protect your DNA from the sun, right? It's just like it's like your own personal umbrella. You could acquire more melanin the more you're in the sun. It also will protect folate, which contributes to reproductive success, and it blocks out vitamin D, though. So this is like the negative. So melanin will also block out vitamin D. So someone with darker skin may need a supplement if they live in a region with less UV rays. Okay, so now we'll get into the dermal layer. So in the epidermis, the two main things is keratin and melanin. And then in the epidermis, or I'm sorry, in the dermis, you've got others. So the first one is sebaceous gland. Okay, this is going to be secreting these oils that are very acidic on the surface. So that if anything, any bacteria touches it, part of the first line of defense, it'll be done. Your erector pili is very important for thermoregulation. Specifically, if you are cold, it will get you back to homeostasis. You had a hair follicle, okay, it's protectin. It's there for protection. It's in some regions that are very sensitive and it needs more hair. Also, evolutionary, I just put that on there because that from the case study you saw that chimps at one point in time, which they think we have common ancestor, had hair. And then sudoriferous, which is also is a sweat gland for, you can tell this is eccrine because it's not attached to your follicle like apocrine, and it's for thermoregulation. Knowing the difference between an eccrine and apocrine, eccrine is going to be for thermoregulation. Apocrine is activated after puberty. It's going to be more nerve and stress related, and it gives off your personal scent. Please make sure you know that ceruminous and mammary glands are part of sweat glands. They're a vital part. Okay, last thing we'll go into is just knowing all your functions. So chemical barrier. In other words, it's going to have the chemicals that it secretes is acidic. So that would be like your sebum, your sebaceous glands, and then your melanin would protect from the sun. Physical and mechanical barriers, that's your keratin, your keratinized cells, which is in the epidermis, and then all your biological. So you've got body temperature regulation. So that's going to be your sudoriferous gland, the Eccrine gland, and that's also going to be your erector pili. Nerve endings, those are those nerves that we saw. metabolic function, synthesis of vitamin D. And it's not really synthesis of vitamin D, more. And it's also, okay, so I wanted to talk about number 3, synthesized vitamin D. It doesn't really, in the skin, it's not really synthesizing vitamin D. That actually is done in the liver, but it does absorb vitamin D. So cross this out here if you wrote that down or anything. It absorbs vitamin D. So that is a big thing, making sure you know it's not synthesizing. It's not like taking your vitamin D. Synthesize would be like converting vitamin D into something that you need. That's something that happens internally, but it will absorb vitamin D. You're going to see that question later on a quiz. It's also a blood reservoir. Okay, and that's it for now. We'll move on to bones later on.